Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Just before we start, I'd like to welcome student government. It's nice to have you here to join us. It's only the second time this year, but I remember most of you, just not real good with the names. And I'd like to welcome everybody else who's in the audience. And maybe we'll start with introductions, just so that everybody does know who everybody is. So I'm Alan Weber, I'm the warden, and I also represent Chester Basin, Chester Grant area.
I'm Tara McGuire, and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer.
I'm Emily Lennox, and I'm just the Executive Secretary.
Erin Lowe, and I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer.
And that's all new since we were here last time.
Wondering, sort of East Chester and through to Northwest Go.
And Della Asif, Counselor for the beautiful District 5.
Where is that?
That's Gold River, Western Shore, Beach Hill, Martins Point.
That's Gold River, Western Shore, Beach Hill, Martins Point, and part of Martinshire.
Good morning. I'm Tina.
Yeah, we might have to speak up because we don't have mics.
And we're also recording for later on, so just so.
Perfect. Good morning. I'm Tina Connors. I'm the Municipal Counselor for the communities of Newlands.
Derek Wells, District 3, which is Chester and part of Chester Commons.
Sharon Church, and I represent District 7, which is Windsor Road, and includes Robinson's Corner, Marriott's Cove area as well.
Boyd Chafford, Deputy Warden, District 2, and Harvard's, Milko, Tim Settlement, Patty.
And I'm Sam Laney, I'm the Municipal Solicitor.
You guys want to do that?
My name is Kaylee Hayes. I'm the President of the Student Council.
I'm Ben Ballman, the Treasurer of Student Council.
I'm Angel Webb, and I'm the Co-Communications Director. I'm Michaela Coolin, and I'm the Co-Fundraising Exec. I'm Jensen Brophy. I'm the Sports Rep. I'm the Murray Connors, and I run social media.
I'm Katie Ansel, and I'm Vice President of the Student Council.
I'm Kevin Coolin, and I'm the Spirit Director.
Okay. Anybody else want to tell us who they are, or you're all good?
I'm Fred Wynot, Director of Public Works.
Again, Cortate, Active Lane Coordinator from Scotland.
Jennifer Weber, Communications Officer.
I think you see them.
Garth Sturdivant, I'm the Senior Planner.
I'm Wilma Forston, I'm the Special Events Coordinator.
I'm Jordan Nightingale, Southern Region.
Well, welcome everybody here.
I come over to keep Councilor Vino company.
Oh, okay.
I thought I smelled bad, that's why.
No.
Okay, so we're on to approval of the agenda and order of business, and I'm not aware of any that I'm making. Any
We might have one in-camera item.
one in-camera item we might have?
Contract, yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Somebody prepared to move we approve the agenda?
So I will move then. I'll second then.
Moved and seconded, discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Public input, I'm unaware of any. Jennifer? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, April 20th. Committee of the whole, errors or omissions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Not aware of public presentations?
Nope.
No?
Not unless student council has one.
No? No? Okay. So we're on to 6.1, which is a request for decision, infrastructure and operations, administrative building upgrade feasibility analysis.
A big title for building upgrades, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to fix our office because it's not accessible and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
It's not quite big enough either.
Yeah. And with accessibility upgrades, it's 1.8 million just for that. And it's two older buildings, so we just basically want to have a look at it, see what our space needs are for staff expansion, future growth. And with council's direction, they want us to look at expanding on the existing site we have, which makes sense, it's central. And the last time we had a report on that area was 2011. So we're recommending that we go out and have an updated cost analysis and just to see what we're looking at for that area, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I thought we'd already come to the conclusion, we just need some better information on what that all means to us.
That's right, that way we can plan.
Yeah.
So the preferred option was the one where we would put another building on that space, is that?
Oh, well, add capacity.
Yeah.
There was some discussion about a building connecting the two.
That's right, they thought the expansion may work better in between the two buildings and connect them. That we'd have one entrance possibly as well, for people to come in a bit better for security that way, and of course the accessibility. And you know what, the first report looked at the restrictions in space due to lack of fire protection system, but with the right fire stops and so on, just like the playhouse has done, that's its options to do that on site, and we had to, gives us a better look, right, some updated costs to know what our options are.
And we looked at Public Works creating a new space for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
We also, one more, on Public Works, we also talked about perhaps a different structure off-site.
That's correct.
And that's what you're referring to?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
is
did.
that part of the study?
No.
Should it be?
Well, it needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, a lot of it is
Process-wise.
whether or not we end up getting the J-class roads, which are subdivision roads given to the municipality, because then that's a whole new thing to look at.
One step at a time.
Yeah, that'd be another report. We have options there as well.
Okay, and Troy,
Tina?
Thank you. So in terms of my recollection, and I, just as a discussion, please, if you remember that day, I was zooming in, or linking in
Yeah.
virtually, and didn't have probably as clear in terms of, if you remember, Tara, I met with you on the Tuesday after
It was
Easter.
difficult to hear,
Yeah, it was difficult to hear. So that, and that's fine, that's my own doing, because I was linking in virtually. But as well, at the tail end of the workshop, we had an unexpected surprise. Mr. LaFlèche joined us.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
He came into council chambers. Again, I was home, but could certainly hear him.
It's hard not to.
Yeah, sorry. Very upbeat guy. It just kind of finished up really quick. And we actually, for me, I don't believe that, I had said it a couple times, and I asked Tara if she heard me, and she did say she did, that during that discussion, I had said that I wasn't ready to, I'm only one person, I get that, we're 7 here. I'm not ready to take the option or options out yet. This is my actual word, so excuse my grammar. Out yet, that includes twinning or marrying up with a multi-purpose idea. I did say that. And I know that we did not, I don't believe that we had chance to really explore that chart with the cost options at that time. And so I was kind of left out there in left field a little bit and felt that we didn't, because Mr. LaFlèche came in, we didn't explore the value for the dollar in terms of those options, and the fact that on this chart, the ranking, I believe, would that last column, Fred, be staff ranking, or I'm not sure. Option 8 at 35% MODC contribution, was very reasonable in terms of marrying up and all of that exploration. So I'm just putting that back out on the table.
Well, I mean, we just chose as a group that day.
Majority.
To
Yeah.
pursue the option that we preferred and not to get engaged too much in the others.
Okay.
And I think it's possible that when they come back with new cost estimates, I mean, nothing's ever carved in stone. But we're doing what we agreed we wanted to do as a preferred option. If this comes back and seems completely unrealistic, then we may reconsider. But at this point, we've already decided the approach.
But again, majority, and I get that, we're a democracy. But I did want it on record, because at the previous discussion, it was a workshop, so there's no notes, only our own. So for public, as well, certainly my community, and certainly the work that we know and the discussions that are taking place now, and it may not even marry up But the fact that there is a group interested of existing board members with Church Memorial Park and new interest to look at a new recreation facility. So all of that is out there and it's public. And again, I'm not saying that our new municipal facility should or shouldn't marry up with the recreation complex, but I just want it to be public and on record. So that's why I'm doing it today, because it was a workshop previous.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sort of where you are in a bit. I'm not sure I'm ready to make a final decision or anything, but I just have one question. Are we looking at upgrading the buildings that are already there to meet accessibility?
Plus adding pieces.
And all those codes?
Yeah, we were directed to go after the low-hanging fruit.
I must have had to see that.
Yeah,
I didn't think we made a final decision. I don't really believe that makes a lot of sense, just personally.
Final decision, we directed
I
staff
know.
to pursue this particular option until we had better.
and they'll help us with the accessibility upgrade costs as well. Tammy's been working on that as well. For a report, which will complement this one too. Should be approved.
So when this report comes back, will they make a decision on how?
Well, I mean,
We have
if
to.
it's, yeah, we gotta do something. Yeah. Andre?
Codes march on. And an example of that would be snow loads, for example, in the 1970s are different than the ones we apply to buildings today. And this accessibility requirement is new. And my understanding is that a recent clarification from the accessibility directorate is that it doesn't really apply to existing buildings. It's for retrofits of buildings and new construction. So if our intent is to cost out what it would take to retrofit our building, I would like to have that open discussion of whether that's actually a priority of this council. If it's to add capacity to our building because we have space issues right now and we need to bridge those two buildings, maybe with this new building that we discussed in the previous meeting. Of course, that new piece will be required to satisfy all of the accessibility requirements. But it's my understanding that that shouldn't entail a complete retrofit of the existing buildings. And if that is our intent, I think we should get some clarification on that.
That's beyond my knowledge.
Further, the discussion the other day we did have and I spoke on it. We did have quite a discussion on building a public works garage, and I understand the extent to which public works will be responsible for infrastructure isn't quite known, but I know that right now we keep our equipment scattered amongst many facilities. And having a public works garage, I think, is actually long overdue. And moving that further alleviate issues with staffing and overcrowding of our building. I thought we did talk about looking at the costs for building a building off-site.
Yeah.
So if that means that today the request is for $20,000 to do a review, what it would take to do from a cost perspective of the joiner building or whatever you want to call that, I would prefer to grant more money so that we could actually look at
The public works.
the public works garage, and maybe you're going to have to make a guess at what you think that is going to be, but I would be willing to spend the money so that we have some answers on that.
Yeah. I just assumed that we were doing the public works building was part of this too, because that would free up space in our existing building to a degree.
That's why I raised it. When the report says council selected option 3, I don't think that's quite right, because option 3 talks about public works relocating Kaiser Meadow.
Yeah, and we didn't really say that. That was just one option.
It's just about the combination of buildings.
Yeah, but I want to clarify that, because that's part of option 3.
We also took a look at the Windsor Road piece that we own.
I think it was option 3 in the, if I'm
In
not
a general
mistaken, in
sense.
the former report, in the 2010 report, I think is what that option 3 refers to, which was there was a whole bunch of options back in 2010 or 12. And one of those options was looking at our 2 buildings and linking the 2 and expanding the capacity. I think that's the option 3 that refers to.
So Fred, if we wanted to add
Not true.
just getting the public works, just so we have an idea what that all means to us, what would you suggest that would take for us to add that to
I
this?
think a lot of extra money. And again, it's looking at what building envelope you need, a precedent for expansion. And they look at a green site as well, you know, a new site versus if we could not put it on that. And those are good numbers too, because then we'd have that for looking at upgrading existing buildings and what it'd be for a new building on another site as well.
Yeah.
You kind of get
Well, I
that
think we
for
should look at
public
that.
works one.
I mean, that's all part of it, I
I mean, 30,000 would be lots for that.
30.
Probably 25.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it were me, and somebody said, you know, what would it take to build, say, some sort of like prefabricated steel structure with some up front, in the front of the building, some office space, and in the back would be a garage where you can have equipment and a laydown area and all that stuff.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, the building part is easy. You'd have to go out and get some information from like civil and stuff like that because I think the site that we were considering was the site on the Windsor Road
yeah.
by Hobbles, and there's some topography issues there and stuff. So that may add some cost.
Yeah.
So I would budget probably $10,000 or $15,000 to deal with that personally.
Well, if we gave you 30,000, that should do the trick.
Yeah, and if it's more than that, I think
Well, you'll be back and tell us, yeah.
Yeah, and then I want to just, if possible, one of the things in the thing was about adding green technology to any buildings we do, and in the matrix it shows like, you know, the existing retrofits that gives us no credits towards that, but you know, personally I beg to differ. We generate 2 megawatts of power. We probably generate more green energy than any of our neighboring municipalities. To say that we our buildings don't have solar panels on them,
Doesn't mean much.
that doesn't actually make any sense. We make way more power than we use. So I feel like if we're going to add those as options, they should be broken out so we understand the cost of them. Because for me, my opinion, that's actually a lower priority. We already make tons of green energy, and
The only thing
sometimes we're
with
just greenwashing projects for no reason. And
the only thing is with adding it, you may be eligible for some federal
well,
funding and stuff.
I accept that.
And if we did a separate public works building, that would be the time to add some solar panels if it made sense. And,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
different new technology, yeah.
yeah.
So we would require a motion to approve $30,000 so they can continue this work, and then we can make a determination as to how we proceed after that. Somebody prepared to
I'll
move
move that we approve that.
it? Seconder?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, Tina?
So again, in terms of kind of breaking into this discussion a little bit, and I will say that I'm probably not as prepared as maybe I should, but I knew over the last couple of days and getting up today and coming out today, I wanted to say and make it clear that I'm not wanting to stop anything or slow anything down, and certainly this has been in discussion since, and Kara, it was 2010, because it was prior to Councillor Vino and I coming on council in 12, that the council at the time was aware of the need and the want and the move forward, and was very responsible with taxpayer dollars, and took it a while to get to this point. But going back to your reference, Warden Weber, around the possibility of being eligible for federal support funding for certain pieces, when again we look at the cost estimates of the breakdown of those different options, that's where I was really hanging my hat around the option. And just because there's monies and it's only 35 cent dollars for us as a municipal government, whereas the other option that we're looking at could be up to 92%, I think, 92 or 93 or something. There's other reasons than just money, I get that, but so I have concern with the fact that we're just simply putting that one option on the table, that one option. And so, and I get the fact that it's gonna be a vote here, and I'm gonna be voted, but I really I do feel strongly, especially with the fact that we know that right now, a group is gonna come back to council and talk to us about the idea of a feasibility study. We may say yes or no at that time, but a group has interest around a new recreation complex. We look at other municipal units in the province and around, and we look at community hub opportunities, meeting location, all of the above. That's all I guess I'm being repetitive, but I just want to put that out there. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say it. We have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And this is not cut in stone. I mean, I think it's a prudent thing to do, because if we don't explore doing our building, that doesn't make sense to me. If we don't explore it, and to explore it, we have to,
It's been on the
Get
table
more
since
detail.
2010. So
anyway.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Or
I want to make sure, because part of the discussion we had was our offsite storage, and the fact that we spent a lot of money for offsite storage.
Well,
I'm
yes, and that was
assuming-
all part of the discussion with the
Yeah.
new public works building.
So I'm assuming that would be part of the discussion as well.
Yeah, they have to look at all the administration building assets, and that's.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's not forgotten. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, 6.2, Corporate and Strategic Management, fourth quarter quarterly report.
That's me.
Okay,
So, in terms of, the first thing is accessibility.
well, that fits right in with the last discussion.
Yeah. February welcomed several new members to the committee, and so now it is fully appointed. An orientation session has been held, and now there's a regular meeting time set for that committee. In terms of the Lunenburg County Accessibility Plan, so individual implementation plans are being created. The initial focus is on the town of Mahone Bay, which has been presented to their council, and they're working through the action items on that plan. The next plan is the town of Lunenburg. In terms of specific projects for the municipality of Chester, our accessibility coordinator provided input into the design of the new municipal welcome signs to ensure that accessibility was considered in terms of the font. As a follow-up, our accessibility coordinator also is involved in what we just spoke about, the municipal administration and annex buildings, so supporting our engineering staff to explore multiple buildings that have been built more recently. Provided feedback on interior signage and the expansion of the trail system, and also continues to provide support to Wild Rose Park accessibility project. In terms of joint projects, the accessibility coordinator is participating in the advisory group led by the Accessibility Directorate to help develop the Foundations of Accessibility workshop, which was piloted already to council. The intent is to wait until the fall to roll that out more extensively. Plain language training is in progress. The intent there is for all staff in all 5 municipalities who are responsible for significant amounts of communication with the general public and internally would get this training. And to first start with train the trainer type program and then roll it out. So do some in-depth training with the select few and then roll it out to the wider staff with a shorter session. There was a project initiated by the town of Bridgewater that provided trained staff on inclusive presentation skills. So 28 staff from the town of Bridgewater, town of Lunenburg, Model, and the municipality of Chester registered in that session. Our accessibility coordinators also met with the staff from Engage Nova Scotia. That's about obtaining data from their quality of life survey. So they did confirm they can pull out more regionalized data and then also further drill down to those who identified with disabilities, so they can find out a little bit more about how they are managing, like people with disabilities in the region are managing when they're compared to those who do not identify as having a disability. There is also work done on how to identify and be more communicative with places that, public spaces. So the accessibility coordinators met with managers of Connect.ca to see if that could be used in order to communicate features, accessible features of public spaces. So, that's important whenever people are deciding whether or not to visit these public spaces. Heritage and accessibility, there's been a lot of work lately around the impact of accessibility and on heritage buildings. That's very much, there's no clear guidelines right now, but Ellen is working hard on trying to work through that in the town of Lunenburg in particular right now to make sure that both heritage and human rights are protected. Participation in the Provincial Housing Agency as well, which is the new Crown Corporation that replaces the former regional housing authorities and is responsible for affordable housing. There's a conference, the Rick Hansen Foundation Conference happened in March. And of particular relevance right now, Ellen's also participating in an advisory group on evacuation and persons with disabilities, so that's a research project with Dal, and continues to participate in the remote planning committee meetings. In terms of fire services, the terms of reference for the fire advisory committee has been completed. Boundaries for Western Shore Commission bylaws.
Sorry,
Can I ask a question on the fire advisory committee? It's been a long time. We're working on it, and I've had calls on our department are giving impatient, waiting.
You have a report coming next week to
Wow.
confirm the
Starting
appointees.
dates?
To confirm the appointees, because of the terms of reference for the committee says the council approves the list of committee members, so that'll be coming next week. And then as soon as that's done, we're gonna set up the first meeting.
The intent is late June for the first meeting, and then final day after that.
June for first meeting?
Late June. Well, late this month is the intent, so.
Thank you.
Completed fire department insurance renewals, long service awards were completed as well. We sponsored the Firefighter Mental Health Symposium and continue to support Junior Firefighters Training Day and Female Firefighters Training and Networking Day. Continuing work on the new Fire Smart program at the Point. Community assessment was held by DNR. And agreement with fire departments to have drones centralized in Chester Basin. Pilot training continued, as well as working on fit testing program renewal for the fire departments.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sorry.
Tina.
Around the pilot training continued. What does that mean?
So I haven't been involved in it in the last few weeks, but to my understanding, the departments have been asked to identify various people who could get certified as drone pilots. And so they're continuing to certify people, and that's an ongoing.
Yeah, I was talking to my fire chief on, Monday and on Tuesday, just with everything going on, of course. And Tuesday I reached him and he was in Hubbard's with one of our firefighters.
That's right.
Who is right, because so I was happy to hear that our new Ross department jumped in.
They had the drone.
To help with the municipality in terms of the one, I think, registered pilot maybe right now too, in terms of New Ross, one of our firefighters. So, you know me, I can't help it. I just have to put that out there in terms of New Ross.
Okay.
Okay, Remo attended Remo Emergency Preparedness Day, which was held in Bridgewater, completed hazards assessments for Chester as well. Bruce worked on applications for generator grants for Western Shore Fire Department and Chester United Baptist Church. Those grants were received. And continuing review of comfort centers and MOC support programs.
Aaron, just if I could ask.
Yeah.
I noticed when I came through this morning that the sign was on Chester Basin Fire Department for the Comfort Center. I don't know, does Western Shore, are they, the fire department now designated as the Comfort Center? Or is it still the Improvement Association? Or do you know that?
I don't know that. Tara, do you know that?
I don't, I can
Okay.
check with Bruce.
Yeah,
You can check.
because of, I think they're in the process of changing that to the fire department because they're fully generated now, so.
Okay.
If you could, and maybe I could explore getting one of the signs to put up there.
Once they get certified, they give it to them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Derek?
Just a question, Aaron.
Yep.
How prepared are we if we have the situation Halifax has right now?
I don't know if anybody can answer that.
Yeah, I don't know if we can answer that
Well, I think we
directly,
have to
so.
be able to answer that.
Yeah, so we continue to meet. The CAOs met this week to talk about potential response. So we have We have our REMO coordinator who was involved in the wildland fires in Fort McMurray. We have another CAO in the region who was involved in those fires as well. So we have experience there to do that. But from a response, it's still, you know, we don't have a shelter identified for the whole region. We don't, there are things that we don't have identified yet, so.
But you wouldn't until
We continue to
until the
work
fire
on it.
happens, you
Yeah,
wouldn't even know where you
until the
should
fire,
put people.
yeah.
No, but we need to have the comfort stations identified. I'm really happy to see that we now have the generators because we got a
Yeah.
comfort station
Right,
in
so,
Chester. But we had no generators. We couldn't operate if the power was out.
Yeah.
But we fixed that, so that's a start.
yeah.
But,
Yeah, we
and I know
have, so
can
the comfort
identify-
stations, the comfort centers are identified, and Remo has the list of comfort centers. But if we had to do an evacuation and have overnight accommodations, that's the area where we
That's the
would,
difference,
that would be the challenge for us, right?
It's
Is
comfort
where do we
centers,
put
don't do
people
that.
overnight and house them in long-term housing, so that, and that continues to be a challenge for a lot of
Yeah.
municipal
And
units.
that would just depend on
Yeah,
the precise
on the precise
location of the
location.
fire. I mean,
Usually we would
if we
go to-
needed this building, we'd use it, you know, I
Right.
mean, if we needed Chester
Right,
School.
we have
we'd use it.
agreements we don't have formal written agreements with everybody, but we've had verbal agreements, we've had verbal confirmation that we would use different facilities. NSCC is one possibility. However, with the number of fires going on, it's my understanding that there's a potential that there could be some folks from Shelburne being housed there. So if it's being used for that, then we need to adjust plans and make adjustments as we go.
The biggest facility we have would be the rink, I would think.
For
So,
Chester.
yeah, well, a lot of people would go to there if need be in an evacuation
Potentially.
scenario.
Yeah.
Have we ever had the discussions with the rink to see that it would be available or anything like that?
To my knowledge, no,
available.
no.
I know it would be made available, but sometimes pre-planning is not a bad idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we do pre-plan, so it's done on a regional basis as well, right? So LCLC is another possibility, there are other possibilities there too.
I think it's important that we address it. I know you are addressing it.
Yeah.
Just wanna,
Absolutely.
And whether we have agreements in place or not, or whatever, I don't want to get into that too much, but if we just declare a local state of emergency, there's virtually nothing we can't do if we
yeah,
choose to.
I think we should have, like the playbook and say, this is what we tell people, this is where you go.
Yeah.
And just, they're not gonna say, we'll get back to you.
No, but it's just, until you have the disaster, you don't know.
No, I agree. No, I don't put you in that. I think you plan before you have that disaster.
And we do.
Yeah, so many decades ago, when there was a major fire in my community, the school was where the evacuation people gathered. And again, you know.
With or without an agreement.
And our
Absolutely, just
and
do
our
it.
last
Just do
fire a few years ago was close to the school, so the school wouldn't have necessarily
Wouldn't
been an
have worked.
option.
Exactly.
So you would have been looking at something else. So
Yeah.
it just depends on the
Yeah.
situation. And we do the pre-planning.
Okay, continue on.
Thank you, Anna.
Still catching up.
I'm kidding.
Health and safety, completed the audit and we received our core certification for 2023 and achieved the milestone of 27 months without any serious injuries. Incorporated the Mental Health Commission guidelines into the personnel policy, and implementation is planned through a new health and wellness committee with support from Josh. Completed situational de-escalation training as well for staff who interact with the public. Implemented Checkmate safety cell phone application for selected staff who are required to work alone. Updated site emergency response plan, and obtained quotation on a visual audio fire alarm system to meet accessibility requirements as well. On the communication side, there's some of your stats for Q4 and the top 10 pages on chester.ca as well. And on the next slide is some communications work that Jen has been working on for projects. The staff directory, the end of year report for 2022, as well as EDI training and the EDI action plan. Communications manual, which is rolled out, expected to be this quarter. The North American Indigenous Games policy, as well as the promotional advertisement policy. Some support on the communication side is remo work.
Just on the Indigenous games, would you just give some information on what it is we've decided?
Jen can speak to the.
Well, it's essentially that we're letting people go and volunteer.
Yeah.
So, council approved the plan to permit, to match, to match time that staff want to commit to volunteering for the North American Indigenous Games that are happening next month in July. So thank you.
So we're allowing staff to take time off of work essentially to go and volunteer, participate. I just wanted to.
Thanks, Jen. Mayfest support as well, and the Best of Chester Business Awards, as well as regional accessibility communications on that. On investment attraction side, this is our investchester.ca website. Top 5 countries we've visited. Canada and US are always in the top 2, and then the other 3 kind of change every now and then. United Kingdom's always in the top 5. We had a little over 700 visitors to the site. We had 8 investment inquiries in Q4. This is involved in the film industry, businesses expanding, food and housing. Those are the types of investment inquiries. And the top 5 communities, the quality of life has moved up ahead of Kaiser Meadow. Kaiser Meadow was the number 1 the quarter before this. And then on the next page, Kaiser Meadow, the Nova Scotia Bioeconomy Site's website is now live. So this is a provincial site that looks at all of the industrial parks in the province. They narrowed it down to 15 sites that are well suited for the bioeconomy. So in particular, the forestry sector. The Innovation Hub is working on this project. Prior, we also brought to council is the BDO zone initiative. So the Nova Scotia Innovation Hub is also working on receiving a rating for Kaiser Meadow, which is going to look at the forest, like the wood pulp fiber, and seeing how much we have, and doing just some more work on data gathering there in order to then communicate that out to potential investors around the world who are interested in doing bioeconomy investment. And we also, on that, we had requested we would fund up to $10,000. The Innovation Hub is going to cover the cost of that study, and then we will, as municipal units, if we get an A or AA rating on our zone, then our input would be on the promotion of that zone. So we would have some money in our marketing budget to go towards that. And we sold 4 acres. The former Rainbow Net and Rigging site, which was previously leased, is now sold officially to Full Circle Environmental Solutions, which is a bioeconomy company who's not yet up and going, but they are looking at a sustainable way to recycle rubber for, tire rubber, yes. On physician recruitment and retention, we have wrapped up the funding that we received for the Healthy Community Stream from the province. So the last item on that was to develop a community welcome guide. So the intent of this guide is not just for new physicians and their families, it will be used as well for anyone who's coming and moving to the municipality. It's a resource for them as newcomers to our region. And Olivia continues to meet regularly with the Executive Director of OHC, Physician and Recruitment Consultant for our region, and Physician Settlement and Retention Coordinator from the province. On Tourism Chester, things are starting to pick up. This was Q4 data, but things were starting to pick up when people were planning their trips, so she was responding to some inquiries. As well, Mobile Ambassador, which since Q4 we have hired a mobile ambassador, so it's Natalie Hargrave. She just started this week, which is exciting. Last couple of years because of COVID, and we've had some challenges recruiting for that position, so happy to have someone in place. And it is partially funded by the Summer Jobs Program as well.
She's in the office now.
Yes. On tourismchester.ca, there's your website stats for that website, the visitors, where people are from, as well, top users by city, and top experience pages.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How do you explain Edmundston being one of the top users by city?
It's a good question. We haven't really dug in as to why particular users would be. I think a lot of what you're seeing has to do with the program, the digital marketing program we did with Tourism Nova Scotia. So they have been doing some localized promotional advertising, and by localized I mean Atlantic Canada. But why Edmonton? This is the first time, so Olivia pulled this report, and this is the first time that we've seen it by city, so it is interesting. I'm not quite sure why Edmonton is in the top 5.
Bridgewater's number 4, so
Yeah.
they should know about Shasta.
Column's number 2.
Yeah, it makes sense for Ontario to be up there. Like, there's a lot of people who inquire from Ontario and Quebec. So yeah, we can dig in and try and find out a little bit more as to
There might be
why.
a story get there, that's all.
No, sorry, no point.
No story.
On the other page, we have, this is the social traffic. So we did receive a lot of visits on our social media from the program that we do partner with Tourism Nova Scotia. That's the main advantage of partnering with them, is they really drive a lot of social engagement, and there's some creative there. This year we were successful in applying for content development too, so there was some new videos and new photo assets that we pulled by working with Tourism Nova Scotia, which is exciting. In terms of business support, business inquiries on the business directory, grant funding questions, and just connecting and referrals for local businesses. And then attended business association meetings and industry stakeholders as well. The growth plan, the plan of work was approved by council in February. We did hold an internal kickoff meeting, and the RFP is drafted, and we're going to be working on the communications plan as well before we can put that out, just to develop the key messaging around that important project. Business support projects, arts and culture strategy RFP has been issued, and we received 8 submissions, so there'll be more on the next quarterly report in terms of that one. But there was a lot of interest in that RFP, which is great. The BRE project, which will also be coming forward for council soon, we had 100 businesses surveyed, and we held 2 focus group sessions, so some good data there and some potential future projects for our economic development activities is going to come out of that work. Agriculture Day was held in Bridgewater this year in March. There was around 75 people at that event, including staff. One unique thing we did for that event this year is we had the typical conference in the first part of the day, and then the afternoon session we brought in a facilitator to kind of work through some of the challenges on for the agriculture sector in particular, to see if maybe there's some potential regional projects that could come out of that. There was a lot of discussion around a food hub, those kinds of things. So we have that data from that, the facilitator for that as well. We have to comb through. And then, of course, Best of Chester Awards, that happened as well in last quarter, and final voting was in March, so you'll have some, you guys also read out the winners of that recently, and Olivia will be going around and delivering all the plaques for that. So if you haven't received anything yet from Olivia, you will be, in terms of the winners in your districts. Other economic development updates, we attended the Lunenburg Queen's Business Excellence Awards. There was a few businesses there from the municipality of Chester, and Hughes Enterprises won a big award as well, so that's who you see up there.
That was new, Ross.
Accepting. And also our Community Economic Development Officer received funding from the federal government to attend the Activate program, which is the GMIS program over in Newfoundland. So it's all around sustainable tourism development, which was she got a lot out of that, met a lot of other people from around Atlantic Canada. So that was a great program for her to attend. That's it for me for Q4 updates for corporate and strategic management.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Any questions, comments before we move on?
Any questions?
Yes, I should say, if you, it's unusual, but if you people have questions, just put your hand up, because I know some of it may or may not make a whole lot of sense to.
Don't be shy.
That includes you, because you're all part of student government. We'll allow you to ask questions. Okay, hearing none. 6.3, Community Development Recreation Open Space Plan and Washroom Facilities Update.
Thank you.
Just before we get started, board members, would be okay with just to give a quick update on the topic of open space, just the impact of wildfires on the municipality of Chester.
Just right ahead.
Yeah, so everyone's aware of the ban on woods travel and activity, and so in response, yesterday our staff went out and posted signage on all of our trails. So all of our trail systems, including the Rum Runners Trail, so our rail trail is closed, as well as trails on our municipal property, so our Castle Rock Trail, our Hahn property and trail, as well as Gold River property and trail are all closed, and so those have all been signed. And as we did, we just wanted to make council aware of that. And there are some parks that are not closed, that are not wooded. So, for example, Wild Rose Park, Crop Road Playground, Chester Skate Park, those all would remain open. But the other trails and anything in wooded areas are closed, and just helping to promote that. And so we've been working with Jen, of course, with social media, just to reinforce the message that's going out from the province for folks to stay out of the wood trade. So, yeah, and I just wanted to make.
I've had a variety of inquiries from people about that. And nobody was unhappy that we were smart enough to close the woods.
The other significant impact from that would be our annual cut and run event that was scheduled for this Sunday, and so for all the reasons surrounding that, and as well. So we made the decision, and the woods closed like very shortly after, and part of our route is on the trail, and so that just kind of worked out that that was an appropriate decision.
So are we monitoring that in any way? I mean, what's the penalty if you find someone using it?
Right, so essentially we do not have staff out there enforcing, and I think that is that responsibility, I guess, would fall to the province, whether it's RCMP or DNR. And so I know in any of the media reports that if you see people making fires or entering the woods they're not supposed to, that can be reported in that way. So we do not have municipal staff that
we just
monitor.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted that clarified.
The only thing I can add, Derek, is when we were out yesterday putting the signs up, we did encounter some folks who were on the trail or about to embark on the trail, so they hadn't gotten to work yet. So it just took a little bit of a soft approach of having a conversation, explaining the rationale, and they were all understanding. It just takes a little bit of time for traction to
Yeah, I think everybody appreciated actually.
You had something?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, I know Chester Golf Force and the Ashton Legend both made their sites no smoking, so people are required not to smoke on the courses because of the fire. So I think that everyone's on board with it, and our public says so. That's all I
Tina?
So just to add in terms of the community trails in New Ross, the Trails Group mobilized that afternoon, that the announcement came out at 4 o'clock, and by dusk, the signage was up on Popner Hill, Larders Lane, as well as Ruby's Trail. And so, yeah, flagging tape and signs, right?
We're all doing what we can.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about our open space development. So we just want to give you an update on today on what we've been doing, what we still have left to do, and then we have two specific issues to talk about. One is the washrooms and one is one of the trails on the Hahn property. Emily has a bunch of pretty pictures. If you could
Is this the PowerPoint?
PDF.
PDF.
Yeah. Trying to keep it simple. So you have the report, and obviously this report was written and submitted to you before all heck broke loose last week. And that's hence Chad's update here. But we just want to give you a sense of what we've been doing out there. So while Emily's pulling up pretty pictures, I'll get at it. We did want to start this conversation with a question. Have any of you been on the new trails that we've been building?
No.
So
I know.
No, that's okay. So this is a good opportunity. We were going to extend an invitation after this to actually go
but we can't.
choose a time and go for a hike together. And I just thought I'd take the opportunity to invite the students, maybe through Jody, we could arrange the same kind of thing. We'll have to wait a little bit though until we can get back into the woods. So, you guys know me. I'll probably stand up at some point and go point at things. So you guys know that I can talk a lot about this stuff and I get excited about it. Feel free to rein me in as you need to. But we've been doing some really good work, and I think the public is really noticing that, and we're very pleased with the work that we've been doing as well. So, Emily, I'll just point at you and we'll keep on going. So, first property I want to talk about is the Gold River property. And if you recall, we laid out visions for each of these properties when we submitted that plan to you a couple of years ago. Next slide there, Emily. So just to say, the first thing that you'll encounter when you visit Gold River property is the new parking lot that's been built there. So there's a porta potty that's been put in place for this season. There's 2 posts in the background there next to my car, waiting for trail signage to be installed. And then next slide, Emily. And then what we noticed as well is kind of the spring thaw happened. This was built last fall, so it's a little bit squishy in there. So we've actually added some drainage, which I've just kind of highlighted in blue there, to note that we've got drainage coming around the whole parking lot underneath the culvert and draining out. So it's really, really firm right now. I know it's been dry, obviously, but I think that in itself has made a great improvement. So just to note that we've been making these little changes as we've noticed them.
Just before you get, just in case they don't know, maybe you're bringing it up, and if you are, I apologize. Just how large is this piece of property? What's the river frontage, that sort of thing, just so people understand.
Yeah, go to the next one there.
Okay, you can already tell us.
So I get all my numbers mixed up all the time. I think this one is approximately 70 acres total. There's 2 properties in there actually. So what we've completed 2 trails.
You own it.
We've completed 2 trails on this property, and that was the plan all along, was to build 2. So we've built the blue trail. It shows up on the green on this concept map. But from the parking lot on the left of the screen all the way down to the riverfront has been completed now. That's a total of 2.3 kilometers of machine-built trail. And we purposely routed that trail down to a lovely new picnic site that we've established in kind of the middle of our river frontage there. And then off of that, showing up kind of in purple on this trail, but we've denoted that one in the blue trail. So that one is in place now as well, also machine built. So together they create an experience of about 3.3 kilometers. You can find a couple of loops in there as well. There's like I said, a picnic site down at the bottom there by the river. We've done a couple of guided hikes on there as well. And if you recall in our vision, we wanted to really use the Gold River property to help tell the story of the region, the cultural history, and the First Nations history there as well. So we have hiked this property with the councillor for Wasso Hoba, Katie First Nation, and Peter as well from the West Farm before he passed away. So just to say, we've been working at creating that and developing that narrative on this property. A couple more photos from here. So I know it's hard to see with this light and the nature of these pictures, but just to give you a sense of what that trail looks like and what this machine-built trail has been developed to. And that also, this is the blazing that we've been using on all these new properties as well. So I just brought a few examples of these. So these are your breadcrumbs, essentially. So as you're walking through the woods, you're checking to make sure these are in the trees and you're following the path as they go along. They're double-sided, they're reflective, and each of the properties has its own unique brand as well. So we used affiliated woodpecker for the Gold River property, Castle Rock, of course, and you'll see some more examples. But just to give you a sense of how we're developing the properties, so that people feel safe and feel that they're not going to get lost as well.
Good idea.
And these pictograms, iconography carries through all the materials.
You have a question?
Pardon?
Oh, somebody back there had their hand up.
Oh, sorry. If there's any questions anytime, just jump in. So just an example of that, I tried to highlight the photo there, the state of trail development, what it looks like. So to distinguish, if you remember when we laid this out to you, there's a spectrum of trail development, kind of from hand-built, carved with tools, all the way up to gravel pathways, right? And we've chosen for most of these bench-cut, machine-built trails. The result is a nice, firm, stable, sustainable trail. Go ahead, Emily. This is the crew working on that property last year. This is, the reason I threw this in here is I just wanted to note kind of the surgical precision that they employ when they're building these trails as well. So we try to minimize the disturbance. There's no importation of materials into these sites either. So they're essentially scraping away the organic material on top, bringing the inorganic materials from the bottom, kind of flipping the ground. So you're left with a nice, stable, compact, well-drained trail. So that's the trail folk crew working last year. Go ahead, Emily. I couldn't help but throw in happy hikers as well. So this is from one of our guided hikes that Jody and the team went back in the spring of this year. So we know that folks are visiting these properties already. We haven't had great grand ribbon cuttings and celebrations or anything like that, but we've been guiding hikes. We've been trying to animate these trails, and folks have been enjoying them. Incredibly appreciative. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I think that we've got kind of the formula, so to speak, right in terms of what people are looking for, the level of accessibility that they're looking for as well. Gold River is very rocky. Han is very different. Each of the properties is very, very different. Both Trailflow did a fantastic job of making the most of what they had to work with, and full credit to them. Go ahead, Emily.
I just like to say before you go on that, because I'm the councillor for the area, what a great, and I know it's for the whole municipality, but great job.
Thank you.
Wonderful, and I can't wait to advertise it once people are allowed back. It's a hidden gem there.
Yeah,
And I hope it's not going to be hidden for long. So.
To that point as well, we've had conversations with the neighbors in the past as well, and we sorted out that little property issue there. And there's a new neighbor there as well, which I haven't checked in with yet, but just to say, no issues have arisen yet. We're conscious of that, certainly, but so far we're good. We'll continue to manage that.
Where do you access that trail?
The trail, so right off of Beach Hill Road, this particular one, right off Beach Hill Road, you'll see that parking area there, Derek, that I noted.
How far in Beach Hill Road?
It's about 6 kilometers up from Highway 3, roughly.
Okay.
Yep, and so there'll be a civic sign there, there'll be a roadside sign there as well to announce that you've arrived. But right now, I'd say the parking lot is quite obvious when you arrive there.
But there will be signage on Highway 3 by Beach Hill Road, where it intersects with Highway 3.
It's almost to the end of the road, isn't it?
No, there's still a few more kilometers past our
Okay.
So Han property, let's talk about that one now. So Han property, again, different character altogether than the Gold River property. You can go ahead and look at this. So this is where we did expand the parking there as well. So this location has about space for probably 10, 12, maybe a few more cars if everyone's efficient. But those 10 and 12 cars that we added here is actually in addition to the loop that already exists down by the house. But we also wanted to make sure that the future of the house and that end of the property could be totally independent from anything that we develop to support the trails here as well. So that's just up on a little rise above that lower part of the property. So the trails are, 2 of the 3 trails you see here are completed. So the blue trail is the main the main single track line that is kind of the orangey yellow lines on this map that extends from the new parking area all the way back to the rail trail. So we've made that connection all the way through. And then off of that is a short little yellow trail, we're calling it, and that has a little bit more bike-specific features built into it, so some fun berms, rollers, a couple of things to jump over as well. The entire trail is really fun to bike. I've done it a number of times. Jody's crashed on this trail. That's up to him, it's not me. But super fun to ride, but it's not an advanced riding experience or anything like that. We built it to kind of include standard in the language of trail building. So it's just a fun, gentle, rolling ride with a little bit of challenge if you choose to take on those challenges. So super happy with that one as well. Also porta potty installed down below the parking lot this year. And this was one of the properties that were when we were just getting going with the development last year. We did meet neighbors, and some of them expressed some concerns about, in that original plan, we talked about camping and fires and enabling those things. So we pulled that out, but then also concerns about motorized traffic. So I just wanted to key in on that line on the bottom of the line of the map there, which we've called the spine trail. To know that one is the 3rd of the green trail in the report that you have here. So just to say that one's been cut out, and I think the next slide, Emily, I just want to jump to that. 2 more, keep going, sorry. 1 more, sorry. 1 more, sorry. There we go. So purple on this map here.
Pardon the interruption. Just a note for students that Gail Moore is here from Employment Solutions Society. She's in an office off of room 254, and she's very willing to help students with resumes and kickstarting your job search. So you could go see Gail in one of the offices off of room 254. And also would Aidan Allen and Colby Cullicutt Rayfuse please go to the office at recess. Thank you.
So the reason I threw this slide in here is this is from the engineer who routed that trail on the south side of the property. He actually did all of them, but we actually asked him, independent of the trail flow contract, to do this for us. Because I think what we learned from the experience with all the others is it's really, really invaluable to have it professionally routed. It's like I said a bad word there. To have it professionally rooted, because what they're able to do is to take the LiDAR data that we supply to them and really fine tune a route through there to consider all the drainage issues that might be present on the property and to minimize some of the slopes as well if we're trying to achieve accessibility standards, USFF standards. So he routed that for us, and then we went in there and started to cut that out. So we got almost all the way to the back the rail trail this spring. So that's cut out, rooted and cut out now, and then we're just waiting to have the next conversation on what we want this trail to do. So can you go back up, Emily? That'd be great. So a couple more features of this trail. Yep, right there. So just to say, this is the kind of the day after the machine left state of the trail, and then the next photo is after, you know, a season or two of existence. It really starts to take on its own, it starts to blend back into nature. I don't think that was a huge disturbance in the first photo, but it really starts to blend back into nature once the pine needles start to fall down. And this is a photo from a hike that we hosted just 2 weeks ago, I guess now. And folks also were amazed and in love for the trail. So, next one, just more to give you a little bit more sense of the trail as it was kind of carved out of that bank there, the machine work, and again, the iconography that we've been applying across all the trails. And this is the little, there's one little swampy spot that couldn't be avoided, so this was the bridge that we built through there. All hemlock, locally sourced, great stuff. It's going to last a long time. And one last, you can stay right there, Emily, back to the next map. But I just wanted to remind us as well that we recently purchased the 19 acres on the right-hand side of this property, on the other side of the rail trail. So now's the time just to remind us of that and think about if we do want to develop that. I would suggest, in line with what we've been doing so far on this property, that now's a good time to start planning that and focus on construction as soon as possible next year. That's not the discussion or direction today from you, but I just want to remind us that that's an opportunity, and I think that we welcomed based on the work we've been doing here. Any questions on that? I'll go on to, oh, sorry. The stream, if you haven't visited the stream is magical, people love it, and we routed the trail to both touch the stream, kiss it, and then go up on a little ridge that's there as well, so you get a nice multiple views and experiences with the stream itself.
So not much water right now, but it's pretty good fishing if you're
Middle River?
right time of the year.
That's Cook's Branch, halfway river.
Halfway, okay.
More happy hikers, hey, look at that. Go ahead, Emily. Okay, Castle Rock. So Castle Rock, everyone loves Castle Rock, well loved and used. So just to say that, you know that we expanded that parking last year. We actually touched on this when we had TIR in recently. So we do have a little bit of space maybe if we would like to, look for your direction on that to expand a few more spots in there. But these signs, these are the permanent ones now, Andre, if you haven't seen those already. Those signs are in place. I drive by this. I think we're doing okay. That's all I can say. I go by twice a day. Always at the same time of day, I realize, but I haven't seen anyone parking there recently. I don't know what chatter you've been hearing on today.
It's been quiet.
I think the message is getting through that we have this big parking lot. Please go use it. My messaging may be a tiny bit passive aggressive, I realize, but I'm good with it. It's got to be specific. So people seem to be finding the parking lot now, and if we still feel like we need to expand it a little bit more, we do have a little bit more room to work with.
I think we should expand it more.
Pardon?
I think you should expand it
We
more.
could probably get another 6 or 8 spots in there. There's not a whole lot of room, but we
No,
could
but
squeeze it in there.
there's not enough parking for that particular site, I think.
Okay. So Castle Rock. So this is the this in the next slide shows that this is the new trailhead sign that's in place. I just wanted to pause here and highlight a couple of things though. So you'll see that the new trails are mapped, so everyone's aware of that now when they visit Castle Rock. So on this map, the green line that is the machine-built line that connects you to that lower look-off, and then the purple line that brings you down around to the south corner of the property and then brings you back up on hill. The other thing I wanted to highlight here is that we included, I think this is cool, we included some new pictograms or iconography on this as well. So it appears on the map, and then on our wayfinding post, we included this, reinvented this trail rider icon. So this is intended to denote which trails, and this will be employed in all of our trail systems, which trails this is most appropriate for. So we've shown you, you've seen the trail rider, we had it in
Yes,
council.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what this is supposed to denote.
That's nice.
So it also shows you where you can go, but also suggests where you can't go, and it's a small print there. But this is a 4x6 sign that exists trail sign. If you want to go to the next one there, I want just to show that. So that's in place now. It's been there for a couple months now, I guess. So it's all been updated to include the new trails. Go ahead. Also to say that some of that wayfinding that's already out there, we do have some more to do, but because of the system that we chose and kind of the modularity of these kinds of things, it's fairly easy when the trails change to unzip one sign, the new sign in place, and the green trail is already noted on this wayfinding stuff. And then this is just some examples of the new trails that have been built up there. This is the green trail, machine-built trail, so a lot of work, super rocky on a place like Castle Rock. So they did an amazing amount of work and a great job at actually smoothing this out as much as possible. They hit a couple of rock outcrops that were not expected, but they kind of carved their way around those. So I've used the trail rider on the Hahn property. And the trail rider could be on this trail as well. It would just take probably another person to help assist with the trail rider. So it's not quite as trail riderable as I had hoped when we imagined this, but it's certainly usable. But that was the plan, to get the green trail built to this standard, to get to the lower lookoff. And the next picture, then it gets rocky again, and so this is all hand-built stuff from this point on the purple trail. Go ahead on that. I'm a trail nerd, Jody's a trail nerd, Chad's a trail nerd. This is like magic to us when we see rocks arranged in this way. So there's humans that did this, is my point, and they did a fantastic job of creating this space. More trail work. So this is, I just wanted to highlight this. So this is on the purple trail, and this was the intention. Is like we knew we had these cliff faces to expose people to. So this is hand-built trail that kind of carves your shoulder right next to that cliff face, is going to wind around it to then come up back towards the peak.
That's kind of
and expose
dangerous.
some new. No, there's no big drop off there. I can see how you might be seeing that in the photo, but there's no close.
Well, it is called Castle Rock.
One last point here, so if you recall, we had a pretty swampy spot near the top on the red route. So previously, feet and ATVs would go through that wet spot on the right side of the photo. So while trail flow was up there, we had to reconstruct that and reroute that. So now you have a dry land route around that. So that's been something that had been a problem for many, many years, well before we obtained Castle Rock, so it seems to be holding up nicely. And then East River. So East River, more hand-built trail. This one was really tricky. So they never intended to get machines in there. But what they've been able to build is leaving the rail trail, which is just kind of off to the right in this photo, and then scooting back down towards the river again. You can go ahead. You now come to this point right by the stream there where we've installed this picnic table. And the next photo shows you kind of the proximity to the trail bridge. So it's right in the center of the picture there. So again, really beautiful, magical spots right by the water. What we haven't been able to do, and I'll talk about this more though, is we haven't extended this trail, which was the original intention, all the way up to the waterfall yet. We own the property almost all the way to the waterfall, but we have two land negotiations to happen there. One is Nova Scotia Power is signing an MOU with us to traverse their property. And there's this tiny little private property in there still that haven't negotiated that or not haven't come around that. So in the meantime, we still want to at least build out to this point, and trail flow will still complete the work when we're in a position to do that. And that just gives you a sense of the map. The trail actually kind of comes more in from the north end of that block that you see that we've carved out there. So it's a little bit longer than it shows there. And then the red asterisks is where the private properties are. And then Mullen Point is the one we haven't made much advancement on. We had our previous contractor in there to look at it, scope it out, give us a plan, and then we've changed contractors, so we need to go back in there and really figure that out again. But this is also an opportunity to rethink it more completely with Ellen on board now, because we didn't have Ellen when we originally conceived of this. And we'll talk about our summer staff that are coming on to help us in this work as well. So, that's the stuff that we've done. I'm going to highlight a few things yet to do, but I'll pause there. Any questions, comments?
Dana?
See, that's thumbs up.
Bad words, bad words.
Is that recess?
What? Yeah.
Is that recess?
Yeah. No, but it's coming up. Okay.
So I have a question in terms of Gold River, and my question relates to the abandoned bus.
Yep.
I'm wondering why it's still there.
We've had many conversations about the bus. We met with our solicitor and our previous CAO, and the plan that we've come up with there is to let sleeping dogs lie, is the simplest way to put it. However, recognizing that there is a risk to be managed there, what we want to do is block off access to the bus, meaning any way that a child or a pet could venture into the rusty, dilapidated condition of that. So hence I mentioned here we're going to put snow fencing around those openings. So that is our management technique for that. In addition to directing people away from the bus. So some people know that it's there. We purposely routed the trail away from that. So our trail does not go to that point at all. It comes to the southern part. And in addition to that, nature has helped out a little bit as well by dropping some trees over that whole trail as well this spring. So it dissuades people from venturing in that direction. So the bus is there. Sam, you can comment if you choose to, but that is our management plan for that at this point.
Question?
Sure.
Sam to comment on the question.
On what?
Did we price what it would cost to move the bus? Is the reason it's not moved cost?
No, the reason the bus is not moved is because we don't have access to the bus to feasibly get it out of there. So there is a tote road on the northern side of our property, but the landowner will not give permission for us to use that until the owner of the bus gives him permission to give us permission. So we don't have feasible access to that bus. The cost is not necessarily an issue.
Pick it up with a helicopter and take it.
We should just leave that kind
Yeah,
of alone.
leave sleeping dogs alone.
Leave it alone?
Well, I
Maybe
mean, it's negotiations between various parties and legal opinions and things like that. What we can't do.
Is it ongoing or will we just walk away?
We've locked into our management plan, which I described, until something changes or we have no plans to pursue anything other than what I just described.
Is it an unsightly premises?
Not in the middle of the woods.
Well, it's a premise. It doesn't have to be,
Yeah,
not where it is.
it does
The forest may kind
Yeah,
of
that's right.
envelope around it. We're hoping.
primarily look if it's viewed by homes and things like that.
Is it
Yes,
dangerous?
team.
Separate topic, so I didn't want to.
I'm glad to raise that.
Oh, thank you. So my second one is in terms of East River, and I do find it particularly intriguing that we may be negotiating with a private landowner simply because of our discussions with New Ross Trails and the whole discussion and the position that this council has taken in terms of investing money when it comes to private lands in terms of trail development. So I find it particularly intriguing that this has now come to the table in terms of our discussion. Doesn't matter the extent of the private land, but the position that council took was investing monies and positioning.
So my intention is to talk to that landowner, see what their interest is in either granting us permission to traverse that. It's only 10 meters or so.
Yeah.
So I take your point, extent is not important here.
And we haven't decided as a council whether to do it or not.
Well, of course,
And,
because of our position.
or is there some sort of purchase option from this private landowner? And then we would, and I note that here, we would ultimately bring that back to council for your final determination of how you want to proceed. So that was laid out in the open space plan. We knew that that was an issue in that triangle as it's shown here. There's actually 3 property owners in there two of them are government. So if we want to get to the waterfall, we do need to figure that out. That was always known, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, move along.
Okay, so I'm just gonna backtrack and just highlight a few things. So Gold River, we just talked about the bus, and that's our plan there. We have a bunch of picnic tables, we just need to get them down. This, 2.5 kilometers carrying a picnic table down in pieces, so we need to get that down there. We can't helicopter it in. The trail that they built there is amazing, and but over in the spring thaw, we've noticed a couple of little springs that have kind of revealed themselves out of the banks there. So our plan is to actually use that as a bit of a living laboratory and go in there and teach our new summer staff, which I'll discuss in a second, but also some of our public works folks, how to do some of this trail maintenance work on these kinds of trails in particular. So we'll get in there and use those little springs that have revealed themselves to do a little bit of tread work. Nothing major, but just something to take advantage of. Getting some of those wayfinding signs, like you see at Castle Rock in there, a roadside sign as well, and developing some of that interpretive stuff, which I'll mention again in a second. Just pause there for a second as well. So my plan all along was to use our Castle Rock trailhead sign as a template for all of our others. But sitting down with Tammy and Ellen last week, Ellen's always really good at recalibrating my brain. Maybe all of ours. And so what we're going to do with those signs as well is think about including QR codes on there. Now, QR codes aren't for everyone necessarily. Some folks need those QR codes to be able to then access those maps on their phone to be able to read them in an accessible and legible way. In that spirit, we already put on that sign a little icon that says, hey, take a picture of this sign, so when you're actually up on Castle Rock, you've got a version of this in your hand. The other interesting aspect of it, though, is designing it to be screen reader friendly. This is not something I necessarily thought of before and I want to get tuned into. So the idea is, instead of having two signs, one that is perfectly screen reader friendly and the one that just goes trail side, design one that does both things. So the idea is, I just need to make some edits to that probably to make sure that when you download that or when you look at it on your screen, a voice can speak to you the contents of this sign. So again, just a little bit of recalibration about the accessibility things that we should be thinking about when we're doing this. Just pausing there. Han, also roadside sign, the green trail that we need to talk about on Han, I'll come back to that. And trailhead sign getting in place at some of those junctions. And again, we can discuss the Hills property doing. Castle Rock, most everything there is done. We're going to put a new big trailhead sign at the East River parking lot to really capture all the information or all the trail information. So we have Castle Rock, we have the rail trail, we have the East River trails as well. So there's a lot going on in that East River junction. So that's a spot where we want to get a new sign in. East River, a little bit of trailblazing, these kinds of things there. Those just haven't been put up. There's like 6 of them to go in that spot. And then sorting out the MOUs or whatever agreements we come up with the landowners. And then really getting to work this year on the Long Point property as well. So, just wanted to note, we do have 2 staff starting on Monday, 2 new staff starting on Monday. Both of them are NSCC students in the Natural Resources Program. One of those positions is fully funded through the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association, which is fantastic, and the other is funded through us. Of course, we've hired people to go work in the woods. We can't work in the woods as of 2 days ago. So that's okay. If you come to my office, you'll see 4 flip charts of a work plan for them. There's lots for them to do. We'll just need to adjust things. Whereas we thought we'd start off with an orientation on all these properties, we'll start working on the interpretive stuff, some of the signage stuff, and the orientation in the woods stuff will have to come a little bit later. So we're not too worried about that. We just need to shift our own work plan a little bit to get them engaged. But their help is going to be invaluable. There's lots, we've done a lot of the big stuff. There's a lot of the fine-tuning stuff we have to do. They're going to be able to attend to a lot of that.
So if I could just maybe, Chad, we spoke about the bridge down by Marcus Point being repaired. Is that going to affect them to do that with the closure? Or would it be a good time to do it?
So we'll have to talk about that.
Sure.
I'm sure it depends on our public works staff and what equipment would be needed and that type of thing. So
Okay.
We'll reevaluate that.
Great, thanks.
Also, one big task that we have for them is we're calling them ambassador days. So there's some days we just want them out on our trails, meeting people and talking and being representatives of us and the work that we're trying to do. move on. So let's get into the two requests for decision. We did include in here just a quick porta potty deployment update for you. So the list of where those porta potties are in place now is included in your report. We have fancy new red ones this year, pretty snazzy. The only issue that's come up, and I'll just mention it, is people like to put dog poop bags in these things, and that's not cool for the porta potties. So we've started putting up don't put dog poop bags in the porta potty signs up. So just be aware of that if you're having this conversation.
So where are they supposed to put them?
Well,
Take them home with them?
Yep.
Well, I mean, I know that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, there's only, I don't know, how many locations do we have? I think just East Room or East Chester, we have one.
We might think about putting, do we have any, just like we did with Wild Rose, do we have them at a
We do at a few locations. The challenge that we've had with any kind of garbage receptacles at our trailheads is that they get severely abused. And at one point in time at all of our 4 trailheads, we had the full concrete recycling waste stations. And we lugged more household waste out of there than anything, and it was really challenging. So we decided that we would move to a philosophy of pack it in, pack it out. So if you're going on the trail, whatever you take in, take out, and we removed those. So the one unintended consequence for that is dog walkers, and so anyone that cleans up after their pet, they have to deal with that respectively, and some people, of course, are not. So I think we will be revisiting the topic of potentially putting out some dog waste stations. But again, then the easy part is buying and installing them. It's the ongoing maintenance afterwards, and the requirement to then on a regular basis to clean those out. So that's the part that needs to be discussed with our public works staff.
I'm willing to listen. It's not my place to discuss operational matters, but it seems like if we could have a receptacle that just had a very small opening, where you just put the size of a coffee cup, and that would be about it. I think then that would be a success
To keep
story.
other things
Because
from
pretty
getting
much that's all that you get from trail users is coffee cups and dog food bags.
Not household garbage.
Big dogs.
There's also some interesting dog poop bag composting systems out there. We've looked at those.
Okay, let's move on to
No, it's riveting.
We talk about poop a lot in our department. I don't know.
Okay, shifting back to the Han property, so just to talk about that trail, the green trail as we've been calling it there. So originally in the plan for open spaces, we had discussed having a 3-meter wide gravel trail that connected the rail trail down to the house. Our thinking truthfully has shifted on the appropriateness of that for a few reasons, which I'll outline. One is that kind of the original vision for that property has shifted with the uncertainty and, of the house itself. We had thought of it as a gathering spot for kind of arts and culture. That seems to be less of its future. We don't know that, we understand that. But also kind of the aesthetic that we've created in that property with the nature of the trail that you saw there, the trails. Very peaceful, very serene. So, having a large disruption in the land, plus the motorized traffic going through there, would change the aesthetic of that property. And given the concerns that we heard last year from some of the adjacent landowners about motorized vehicles going through there, and kind of the ballooning cost of everything as well. So, we had a very reasonable estimate last year, and things changed, and then that got bigger. That's noted here, that's $61,000 to kind of even to downsize the size of that trail. And I'm giving you in here as well, if we were to stick to the original version, I think we're probably in the $100,000 plus range now to have that fully 3-meter wide, plus the attendant corridor through there, multi-use trail. So what we're recommending is that we actually downsize that, or I like to use the term right size that here, so that we still achieve the full network. Because you did notice that trail, as it was routed by the engineer, actually kind of kisses the existing trails that we've just built, so that creates some looping opportunities. Still allows a more accessible route from the rail trail down to the house itself in terms of slopes and bed surface. I think it's still worth committing to that treatment, but we're just suggesting downsizing it to non-motorized and trying to achieve it at a more reasonable cost given the current climate that we're in versus where we were a couple years ago. So that's what we're suggesting, open the discussion.
I agree with that version.
Yeah.
However, we may revisit that in the future. I mean, it could be made into a motorized trail if the house is utilized or there's other features there. But as it stands now, that makes sense.
Just on that note, Sharon, this has been part of our strategy as we've been working at these properties as well. Mainly deliberately, meaning that let's do something, let's introduce people to the property, let's let all the people that we don't know about visit the property as well, and let's discover what the management issues are before we just kind of create chaos.
Yeah.
So, you know, a measured approach, I don't want to say a slow approach or anything, but a measured approach can actually be really beneficial sometimes, where you just kind of set out what you can do and then react. You know, set expectations and then react as you need to.
So are we prepared to accept? Oh, sorry.
I was gonna suggest, so one of the reasons why I liked the trail that had originally been proposed is because it was one of the few trails that we were building that was actually surfaced with dust. And so like most, I'm not saying most, many riders don't have the same capabilities as our rec department staff or the same equipment that they may have. And so, you know, having a trail that's really easy to move on would be good. If we were gonna proceed with reducing the scope of this trail, I would personally like to see just a reduction in the width to maybe.
Sorry if I wasn't clear, that's the intention. So
okay, that's not, it's on.
Yeah, solid gravel,
just smaller.
Just narrower corridor, narrower tread, narrower corridor.
Well, that's fine. And as Sharon pointed out, then if we chose to in the future enlarge it, we can.
Yeah.
Is somebody prepared to move we accept option 1?
Also move.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to washrooms again. Also in that original plan, we had proposed to you some version of enviro toilets.
Yes.
You know, composting, self-sustaining, energy-less, waterless toilets.
Yeah.
So we put it in an RFP and we got 3 submissions back. We were disappointed, I'd say, in the pricing that we got back with those units. So pricing was one, but then the other considerations, they were all a little bit different. Some, even though we put it in the spec, they had to be energy-less, waterless. At least one of those 3 submissions, you need those hookups. And then they do take maintenance, as any facility would, but this maintenance is the addition of enzyme digesters or bacterial digesters. So that's the input that you have to put into these things. But also, Emily, if you go back to my slide deck there, I did throw, the PDF, the very last page. So I threw in some photos of what those 3 units look like. And I can't say, so the green one on the right, I can't say it's appropriate for us. And the reason for that is, I think it's appropriate in downtown Tokyo. It has internal misting disinfectant systems and UV light. It's a lot. So, but it's also a self-contained unit, and this is one of those units that I think on the surface makes a lot of sense. But when we actually get into the complexity of maintaining it and servicing it, we didn't feel really confident as staff that that would service us. The one on the left is a different system altogether. But similarly, we don't have great confidence, even though the proponent said that they could meet the capacity that we forecasted for each of these locations. I'm not feeling confident that that one unit, so according to them, that one unit would serve us at East River. I don't feel confident in saying that. And then the one in the middle is the one, is B in your list here. We have a little bit more confidence with that one. But to service East River, we would need to install 4 of those black boxes or double what you see there. So big facility for a reasonably small space. So as we kind of considered all those different options and the rationale behind each of them, we kind of came back to the more primitive technology, so to speak, of a vault toilet. So the complexity of these systems versus kind of the known systems that we have. Kaiser Meadow is a vault toilet. So it's essentially getting a concrete bucket in the ground, building an enclosure over top of it, putting the fixtures in place. But you still need to maintain it, of course, but with the capacity of those, the maintenance of that hopefully would be a whole lot less in terms of frequency of pumping out. So, we reviewed as staff, Randy's by Fred as well. So we landed on, we think that the old technology, primitive technology, is probably more appropriate in our case, considering the cost, considering the complexity, considering our capacity to service these things. We like the concept, the technology in theory is wonderful, but it just didn't feel in the end that it was right for us.
Got a picture of that?
Of the vault toilet? Sorry, I didn't include one.
Go to Graves Island.
Kaiser Meadows and vault toilet there.
Oh, it's an outhouse, oh.
Yeah, it's an outhouse, yes. Yes, some are just bigger.
Well,
It has a holding tank.
it's an outhouse, but it has a system.
Very traditional.
It's not just a hole in the ground where the waste goes into the soil, it's actually contained and then you pump it out as you need to.
Guess I didn't know the technical name.
Are they handicap accessible?
So, thank you for mentioning that. So, at least 2 of those units there come with those enclosures, the left and the right one. Those 2 that were proposed to us at these prices are not handicapped accessible. With the center
We want
units
them
there,
now.
we build the enclosure,
You'd have
So you
and
can
we
make
could
it.
build it to an accessible standard. So with the vault toilet, the vault is the vault in the ground. You build the enclosure to the standards that you want. So that was part of the process we went through to make sure that we could, I considered what the sizing would be in terms of doors, turnaround clearances, location of fixtures like hand grab bars and those things. So those are considered in this process.
So you want to go with the traditional vault toilet?
That's our recommendation.
Yes, Andre.
Um,
That's where the engineering comes in.
You're the expert in sewage. Come on.
Obviously, the biggest concern that most people would have with any kind of vault privy is
Smell.
they're disgusting. And a big part of that is because of their passive nature. They do have a stack on the outside of the building that allows them to vent, but there's nothing that, they also vented inside through the toilet itself. So when you go into the structure, then you're in the ventilation space. And I don't know if it'd be possible to have engineering or look into if we could even just augment the state of the art a little bit by adding like a solar powered fan on the vent stack to try to create a negative pressure inside the structure so that it's always venting outside. And
Not inside.
I think if we were able to do that, I think we would get a lot more satisfaction. And you're probably going to want to have solar powered lights and things inside anyway.
Yeah. The best vault toilets that I've visited have very large pipes, vent pipes, and those seem to work really well. But the better ones, I agree. You could have that fan in there.
It's worth looking at, I think, yeah, because lighting too it can be an issue. It just,
So those are great points, and we can add those into there. But I think even adding those 2 features into the pricing that we've costed out here would be much more realistic and reasonable.
it adds something, but it's still
If I
cheap.
recall, when you originally approached us 2 years ago on this topic, council actually offered you more money than you asked for to make sure that this project would be like a happy story for the public, so.
So even at that increased budget, I think you gave us 15, or suggested 15,000 per. These are all, these 3 enviro toilets
Yeah, I
are
gotta
all.
come up with some sort of system to sort of keep that environment inside the structure a little more pleasant, and I think that.
So we want to go with the vault toilets, but we want to give some consideration to the solar powered fan and possibly light. Yeah, Tina?
Certainly, so I just have some questions around, not as we move to a motion necessarily for these 3, but I must ask around the longer term plan in terms of that totality of the list of locations that we have talked about. Again, a couple of years ago or last year, I guess March 3rd, 2022 is when I have it in my notes here, the last. And that links back to when we made the funding application, which we didn't get, to Community Healthy Communities Initiative. I get that. But we have, we've got a ton of extra gas tax money, and we've got money, just because we don't spend it necessarily, but what's the totality of our list? I just want to make sure that we have not veered off of that page.
Yeah, so I think what we had talked about initially is that there's 3 locations listed
Sure, here, today.
in the report.
Today,
And
yeah.
so the idea was to start with those 3 locations and see see what success we have, see if there's any lessons learned from those, and then to consider our longer list. So currently in the report, we have the long list of where the current porta potties are being listed, and then to determine which of those would be appropriate for the lessons that we've learned on the ball toilet. So that longer list still exists. That would just start with our initial 3 and then proceed from there. So in the meantime, the porta potties will be the solution, and over time we'll continue to bring back the solution.
Thank you very much.
Somebody prepared to make a motion? Andre, you know what you want.
Move to be evolved for the option with maybe some enhancements for operator or user comfort.
Seconder?
Second that motion by Mr. Vino.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We're taking a 10 or 15-minute break.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Okay, people.
You're on YouTube and look up the Kennedy Roll. Do it right.
So calling the meeting back to order. And we are on 7.1. Information from the Joint Regional Transportation Agency regarding multi-jurisdictional transportation system. And essentially all we have to do is appoint a person to that committee.
And an alternate.
And Tara has agreed to take it on, and Aaron has agreed to be the alternate. So,
Excellent.
somebody want to appoint them?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. There'll be a lot more to it later, but that's where we start. Okay, 7.2, draft letter Ecology Action Center, Minister Halem regarding Coastal Protection Act. Is that it? Do I have it?
Yep, that's it. You just passed it.
Is it?
That's it.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah, and I get a call from these people, then they sent me this draft. I asked them to send me the draft letter. And from my understanding is they're simply frustrated with the slow pace at which the province is coming out with the regulations. And they just want municipalities to support them and send a letter, so.
I have a question
You ready to hit and ask it?
or a comment.
Okay.
In paragraph 3, they talk about the province continued delay of the regulations and unfair offloading of labor and cost onto municipalities, leaving them to either pass their own bylaw. What's wrong with us passing our own bylaw?
Well, we've been waiting for the province to come up with the regulations so that we knew what, and Gareth can speak to it.
Yeah, no, that was all I was going to say was when the issues come up in the past during the municipal plan review or at other points when we've discussed, say, lakeside and inland floodplain protection, the coast has always been the discussion and decision has always been, well, we know this Coastal Protection Act is coming, and now that's been almost a decade, and so we certainly could, but to date, the decision has been to wait.
Because we aren't sure what they're going to do.
Well, do we have some protections in our bylaws now, though?
No. On the coastline, no.
No.
And then again, that's been an intentional decision because the concept of the Coastal Protection Act is fantastic, and when it was debated at our council, that was the thought was, well, these would be, we don't know exactly what the regulations would be, and also they would affect everybody the same, so there wouldn't be people jumping from one municipality to another to take advantage of more flexible regulations.
We have jurisdiction to pass our own bylaw.
Yes. In terms of setbacks or...
We just want to be consistent with the province. Tara, and then...
I was just gonna add the exact same that Gareth already added. One of the discussions at the provincial level has been the need for, both with the Planning Directors Association and with the municipal administrators, and has been the need to have consistent regulation across the province that doesn't pit one municipality against another in terms of regulation. And if it's important for one area, it's important for all the areas, so.
Andre?
I believe that the regulation of shoreline development is the responsibility of the province, not municipalities, because frankly and simply, they possess the scientific resources to actually make appropriate regulation. The regulation that was under consideration and has now delayed considered many factors. It wasn't just a simple setback. It had foreshore and aft-shore slopes, type of geology, fetch of the ocean. There were many factors that contributed, and so they went into a mathematical model, and then the setbacks as they were required were then calculated on a case-by-case basis, because obviously the setback requirement for us, say in Cold River, would be much different than it would be in
Bayswater,
or on the other side of the province, where, you know, with all clay soils and flat. I really do feel strongly that we should avoid regulating and just putting some sort of number out there, because there are places that are very sensitive to development and need protection, but there are others that may be like all granite, say Aspatagan, where, you know, shoreline erosion and that sort of thing is not at all an issue. And that's what their model was designed to deal with, and we simply don't possess the knowledge and the resources here within our municipality to make appropriate legislation, in my view.
yeah, and all these people are saying is you've delayed long enough, you don't.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah, so they just want to know we'll support right to left side.
I would add to that is that I'm not really clear what the province gave as a reason for the delay. The tool was being developed, it was almost complete, it was ready for the training at municipalities and those design professionals that were going to undertake the work of providing advice to those who wish to develop. And then it just evaporated, and with no apparent plan to restart it. So I would say that I have concerns. I mean, I don't often align my ideologies with the Ecology Action Center, but in this case, you know, I have to agree that I don't know why it is that this was stopped.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, but I don't know that I agree with this letter in the sense that if those issues were in the letter, it would be more in line with simply saying they're putting more cost on us. They're not, because we're not doing anything. We're waiting.
I mean, I don't know. Would I have necessarily worded it
I mean, they
exactly
can
as
send them
they
a letter.
did?
What are they asking us to do?
They're asking all municipalities to sign this and send it off to the province. So that the province knows that it's not only them that's getting annoyed with the delay, but we are too.
I'm not into signing form letters to the province. I think if we want to adopt our own reasons, I think we should send our own letter.
I would support that. You know, if we want to send our own letter that is, you know, has the same spirit of like asking why it is that the delay, we thought that it was a valuable thing that they were going to complete, and we see a use for it here. I have no issue with that, and I agree with Derek that you know, there are some that the words in here don't really apply to us.
Yeah.
I think.
So why should we sign it?
No, I agree. Like Modal, for example, they're reacting because there's a public outcry because there's some development in one of their coastal areas.
Crescent Beach, it's big.
Okay, so why don't we get staff to draft a letter to the province, essentially in support of them, but with our own rationale?
Yeah, and ask them why, what happened, why
Well,
did
we
they
can
wait?
ask all we want. What
It'd be nice to have an
what we
answer.
really-
Exactly.
Oh, I don't care. I mean, I'm
Should we
happy.
just send it, or would you like it brought back?
I think-
Can they just draft a letter?
Send it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys just draft.
Why don't you send it to us, give us 24
Well-
hours to review it before you send it, just so that.
Because if we have 14 different opinions on the amendments, then we'll have to hold another council meeting.
Well, it's not life-threatening.
Okay. What do you want?
If Derek wants to see it, we'll bring it back.
I didn't say bring it back, it just circulated to us, let's take a look at it.
We'll be meeting next Thursday anyway.
Yes.
Well,
Add to the agenda next week.
it's been 10 years, it'll wait another week.
We can add it to the agenda.
Yeah, just add it to the agenda next week. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Not a problem. 9.1, Zobel Library, request for grounds maintenance.
I actually don't have a written copy of that letter, but I do have it on my computer.
I can read it to you.
Might be.
Nancy and Derek, whom
It's
should
right
I
up
get
there.
in touch with to have the municipality take over mowing of the Zobel Library grounds for the summer? Glenn will be undergoing a medical procedure next week and will not be able to allowed to do physical work for a couple of months. If the municipality will not accommodate, then I will have it done by my guys. That's from Colin McDonald.
That's we also got a letter from Glenn.
We got a request or something from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I have
It's in her
that?
emails.
I don't think it got included.
No, I don't.
No, that's
think
what I'm
I
saying,
got
I think it,
What's
Just
that
in her
say?
emails. It's in her emails.
it. Anyway, they don't seem to be able to get their lawn mowed.
well, no, the guy who mows it under the agreement we have with him
Is
has
not
had
capable.
surgery and is not
Yeah.
able to,
Yeah,
and has asked that while he's recovering,
if somebody
Under
else
surgery.
could look after it.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
can we, it's our property, although we do have an agreement that that's his responsibility, but it is our property. In the meantime, Colin, one of the trustees of the library,
Just do
is
it.
having it done, but I don't think that's appropriate. And I think it's a small thing, and I think we could do that for the, while he's recuperating.
Public Works can do it.
And maybe
Yeah,
Fred
just
can
our
comment.
public works is now doing the Village of Chester's Public Works and we're short on staff.
Well, let's ask Fred how much time it would take, maybe we could get Fred to comment on this.
Well, we've done it in the past when there's been a problem with their staff, so you can fit it in. It may not get cut as usual, but it's been so dry now anyway that,
We'll do it when we can.
yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
We definitely want to help out, that's what they got to do.
Okay, here comes the argument. Andre?
I'm ready for you.
I love the humanity of it all. So, you know, when it comes to the mowing itself, the answer is who cares, of course. But there is a broader discussion that, of course, I'd love to discuss since you've opened the door crack for me. And that is, you know,
Why we have it.
well, first of all, I'll speak to the direct one here. There is a contract in place with Glenn, and he's supposed to mow it, it's right in the contract. And, you know, if I had a contract to mow your lawn and then I broke my leg, you know, it would be my responsibility to go hire somebody to do
That's
what I
correct.
said that I was supposed to do.
That's
So there's no, and further, the contract isn't actually with us, it's with the trustees. So if anybody should be paying for somebody to come mow the grass, it actually would be the
Trustees.
not the individuals, not
I'm a
Colin.
trustee, I just for the
But-
record,
But
I'm a trustee
Oh, then conflict.
appointed by
Conflict.
there's no,
council, same as your,
he doesn't get anything.
Okay.
Anyway, so like, should we be doing it? No, we shouldn't. Now, there's a broader discussion here, let's have it. So we mow a bunch of stuff that isn't our stuff. We do the train station. Why do we do the train station? That's not our train station. We do it because those that own the train station property, I presume, can't do it. Maybe they don't have the resources to do it, and
I don't remember the details, but I know that we had a little chat about that. I think it was in part because a lot of people who use our trail system were parking up there. And I think that's what prompted us to do some pieces.
yeah, so, but, you know, it's a very interesting scenario, and we have a number of these groups that own real property, and they make the decisions on that property, what is to be done. And they lack or are unwilling to pay for some operational expense. So we end up doing things like maybe push snow around for them, or we mow their grass or whatever. And I kind of question, like, okay, so like, let's say the train station, and I'm just using that as a poor example, but I just want to, for fun, entertain me here, please. You know, if a group owns a property and they're unable to do the basic operational things, then it calls into question, like, why do you own this property? And if we want to have it as a park, then why don't we bring it back here and say, like, should that be transferred to us? And let's have an honest discussion of whether we actually want to have that as a park. But instead, we maintain it as a park of our own, and then they call the shots on what actually happens there. It's
Mow
like
the grass, we don't.
it's sort of like it's not quite, but it's almost like taxation without representation. We pay, but we don't actually get a say. And you know, it's a bit of a push to go there, but the point is, we do it for a number of properties, and
Why aren't
I
we
would
doing
like
it for
to, at some
everybody?
point at council, have a little discussion about the ones we do, because I don't even think I know of half of them. And really talk about whether we should be doing it, and then have a frank discussion with those groups and say, can you do this or not yourself? If you can, do it. If you can't, then maybe you should talk about whether somebody else should take over ownership of those properties. And if that's us, then we'll own it and administer those properties, and we'll have a frank and open dialogue about what we do with those properties.
Yeah, I mean, until Tara reminded me that we were doing the train station, I didn't even hardly know that we were.
There's
But
probably others.
yeah.
So we do the whole field at the train station?
I believe we do. I think we do the whole
Yes.
field.
Maybe you could give us a list of the properties that we don't own that we're mowing the lawn.
Yeah, we go all over the place. Yeah.
Well, somebody tell us what they are.
We can do
And,
that. We
and
can
I
do
will
that
say, like, so, like, Glenn is gonna be temporarily out of commission, he won't be able to mow the grass, we go in there and do it. You know, what happens if something serious happens to Glenn, he's still there as the custodian of the property, you know,
And we revisit
and then we're there forever doing this. This could be a one-way trip. And in the end of the day, if we want that as a park for our residents, cool. But I think we should have an open discussion about that.
And are we even allowed to use it?
But don't forget, this is municipal property,
We own it, I know.
we own it. It's not the train station, it's not Lordley Park, we own it.
But, yeah, I know your
We own
profession,
it.
and you know what's in this document.
I do.
And are we responsible for the mowing?
We have a contract with him to do it, and he's sick and can't do it, so on a temporary
Trustees.
basis.
We don't have a contract with him to do it.
The trustees, I didn't sign the contract.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
the trustees
The
were doing
details
it,
are
they
important.
Colin,
It's an employment contract with us.
yeah.
Yeah, but not with us.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it
Now,
is.
we have one.
No. We do have an employment relationship.
As of
He is on.
September
Oh,
2005.
I know, because we assign a value to his, to the accommodation.
Anyway,
And we-
there's a broader discussion that needs to be had. Fred is gonna give us a list of the properties that we mow and maintain that don't belong to us. So what do we wanna do in the short term? We wanna mow the lawn or not?
Yes, I so moved.
Second.
I hear a second.
Yes, I second it, definitely.
Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's
Oh
carried.
my God, you voted.
Look, it was an eye-opener when Carol Noss came
Okay.
in, with the Heritage
love it.
Society.
I love the
So
community.
it's,
Anyway,
it's gotta soon
we're
stop.
mowing it, that's all I can tell you.
And we'll bring back a
I
list.
can't wait.
9.2,
No, no.
waste inspector position. Who's speaking to that one?
Thought we'd have something
Do you want to
exciting.
speak to it or do you want me to? Okay, I can speak to this one. I just have to open it up here.
Here's paper copy, you can have that. No, you can't read paper stuff.
Here, I don't have it in the package. Okay.
Here's the paper one.
Thank you. I can read the paper one. So this is a request that council authorized the realignment of the positions of a couple of positions to create a new position, the bylaw and waste inspector position, and authorize staff to undertake the recruitment process. So it gives some background in there. In 2018, the curbside inspector that existed with solid waste was eliminated. And that role was deemed surplus due to the requirements owing to the anticipation of developments in waste processing at the time. So that position was responsible for a number of functions. primarily they were inspecting loads that came into the landfill when they were put at the landfill. They did curbside inspections, they helped out with the household hazardous waste site, they helped out with the C&D site. The position also dealt with some of the green bins, some of the waste complaints. So that's been a gap, and we've been filling it as best as we can, in part with bylaw enforcement, as we can in terms of solid waste complaints. But the green bin stuff and the inspections at curbside and all of the inspections of the loads coming into the landfill, that has been a gap that we haven't quite fulfilled, and there is a need to create a position there. The other role we have is we have so our bylaw enforcement position is a 0.6, so 3 days a week position. Last year in the budget, we had a 0.4 fire inspection position. So in the budget this year, we took that 0.4 position for the fire inspector, because we now have a full-time fire inspector as well, after we removed ourselves from shared services, and we created a full-time fire inspection position. The 0.4, we budgeted for a full-time position, that's this position. So we took the 0.4 and moved it into this position to create a full-time bylaw enforcement and waste inspector position. So the request is for us to be able to hire that. So it is in the budget. It essentially takes the previous 0.4 FTE from the fire inspector and moves it into this position.
So will this person be out at Kaiser Meadow essentially, or?
So it would be so roughly 2 days a week, the equivalent of 2 days a week spent on solid waste. So there would be some time out at Kaiser Meadow for sure. And then helping to deal with the solid waste complaints as well, which wouldn't necessarily require them to be out at Kaiser Meadow.
Curbside.
That could be curbside, that could be in the office dealing with illegal dumpings, all of that kind of stuff, those types of complaints.
So we've essentially agreed to the budget, we've essentially agreed to the
Correct.
position. So now can we move forward, or do you not want to?
I just have a question.
Okay.
Tell me not to ask.
No, you're not supposed to speak anymore.
Okay. Salary band, middle manager, I was just wondering, like, maybe I could explain that.
So we have a job description that we run through a tool that we have, our job evaluation tool. And so it assigns various levels of points to the different functions. And depending on how many points it comes out as, that determines what salary band it's at. Currently, that position comes out at the middle manager. And that is what the current bylaw enforcement position is at as well.
Okay, what do we want to do?
It's a middle manager coordinator, so.
Well, then make a motion of some sort.
I'll move that we reinstate that position.
Do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder for the motion to reinstate the position?
Nobody wants that? I know it's certainly been.
It's not entirely reinstating the position, it's combining it
Creating the
with
position of bylaw waste inspector.
So that's your motion. Do we have a seconder for that or not?
Well, I just know, we just had a meeting the other night with Krista, the landfill committee. They certainly could use it. Things going on there that they need that person, and currently they utilize the heavy equipment operators to do things like that because they just don't have the staff person to do it. And I can tell you, I noticed a lot of garbage coming off vehicles going to the landfill. I almost pick up things daily. I just think we need somebody that is overseeing that like we had. I'm more concerned with the waste inspector type role.
Well, there was a seconder, there wasn't any seconder, so.
I just want to speak to it. So is this position more inspecting waste that comes through our collection contract, or is it just
Curbside?
I think it's a combination, so they would be, it's only 2 days a week in waste inspection, the rest of it is bylaw enforcement. So the waste inspection, they would be doing some of the loads that come in through our collection agreements. They would be at the landfill face inspecting those. They would be doing some curbside inspection, but I think it's primarily where, if I understood correctly, it's where repetitive issues have been identified by our contractor, our waste contractor, GEs, and so when they identify that there's repetitive problems,
This house is
going out
constantly putting out
right,
the wrong thing.
constantly going in, so it's not necessarily driving around to the houses and starting curbside inspection randomly, it's when identified issues are there and dealing with
So
those.
I'm just gonna ask this question because I'm a simpleton. We have folks that their job is to collect waste and they're there every day to collect every bag. And they themselves know when it complies or they don't comply. Why is it that we can't add a little bit of money to that contract and they can do the compliance themselves right there on the truck?
They do on occasion
So
put
they do on
rejection
occasion do
stickers.
Why don't they do it all the
rejection
time?
stickers, but I
Yeah.
don't think that that's the primary role of this either. Like, it's that, it's once they have repetitive, like, issues, it's, are we now going to start issuing tickets? They can't issue tickets to that person. It's helping out at the household hazardous waste site on site, and that's not something that they can do. So there are a variety of functions that that Krista has identified that are gaps out there right now that they're using other staff for, that they don't have capacity.
In my mind, it seems like when you don't get your waste picked up, that's punitive enough. Like that only can go on so long before it creates a problem at that particular household usually.
So what about the bylaw enforcement piece? Because that's also part of what you're asking us to hire.
Sure, so right now we have a 60% position, so this is only adding the 40%
Okay.
to that 60%
Okay.
position. So we have the 60% position, this is the request to take the 40% that used to be under the fire inspector and add it to this position so that we can enhance our ability at the landfill to deal with those gaps and to deal with some of the solid waste.
Okay, so I'm only gonna ask one more time.
I'm going to second the motion. I really don't understand the salary band and that, but I know we need the person. I know we need the work done, but I don't necessarily understand why.
So the motion was to add the 40%. You're seconding the motion.
Second it.
Well, at least I got that far. Discussion on the motion.
Well, I agree with Floyd's comments that I don't know what this middle manager is managing, if they're just managing garbage bags or something.
The salary band is a middle manager coordinator level, so it's not a management position. And when you see the new salary review, one of the proposals is to remove those titles anyways, and it would just be at a band. But we do have a tool that we use that looks at the functions of the job
Under our
based on
current policy.
our current policy, yeah.
Yes, Derek.
So would the present 60% position, the person who's learned that,
They're at the middle manager coordinator.
but would they then do both jobs?
Yeah, so yes, this would add this to their job.
But is he willing to do that?
We don't have, the position is vacant right now, so we would be going out to recruit for a bylaw enforcement officer. So Brendan, was our bylaw enforcement officer when we
moved him.
moved we moved out of the shared services model. He's now our fire inspector. He has been fulfilling the duties of the bylaw enforcement officer, but it's been until we make a determination and fill this position. So we will either fill a 60% bylaw enforcement position, or we'll fill 100% bylaw / waste inspector.
So who's doing the bylaw enforcement? He's doing the bylaw?
He's doing
it at the moment.
but it's only until we fill this position. So it's only until we fill either a bylaw 60% 3-day-a-week position, which is going to be we've in the past had difficulty trying to recruit for a 3-day-a-week position. So we'll either have to go and recruit for a 3-day-a-week bylaw enforcement officer position or a full-time bylaw / waste inspector.
I can only speak for myself, but I think one of the things that kind of I find a little bothersome is that a few years ago, we were confronted with, we don't need this position, and we let somebody go, and here we are just a couple of years later, and now we're like, oh no, I guess actually we do need them, and now we're doing it over again. And I find that, I don't like this.
Well, but part of it is also that Brandon's been given a new job. And who was it? Somebody at the landfill used to do some of it. Was it Tammy?
Yvonne.
Yvonne.
The position was eliminated
The position.
when we were looking at sustained.
Anyway, there's a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion? I'll put your hands up again,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
Opposed?
3-3.
That was 3-4. It passed.
It passed, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Good one.
Yeah.
How'd it pass?
4-3.
4-3.
You voted.
Yes, I vote.
Alan
Okay.
votes every time.
Just
Yeah.
checking.
Yeah.
Well, you'd have
I'm
to.
not allowed to make a motion, but I am allowed to vote.
It's important that students see what's really happening here.
I can't make
Really?
a motion unless I leave the seat of the chair.
Yeah, pass it over the floor.
That's the reason we're here, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, but I am allowed to vote. Not only allowed, I'm expected to.
If you don't vote, it's a no vote.
Well, that's right. If I don't vote, it's
I didn't
considered
see
a
you
no
vote.
vote.
I didn't see you put your
I
hand.
had my hand. Well, the solicitor can. Okay, people. That's the end. We have some in camera. Oh, I just want to mention to you that, yes, it was yesterday that we did write to Barrington and Shelburne and offer to assist them in any possible way we could. And we're going to do the same for HRM today.
Correct.
Can we, just for information, what kind of strain have these fires put on our own fire departments?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, and I know this is not the time for the discussion, and I stopped in to see our chief at his workplace on, what's the day, on Tuesday. And he was at work, and I said, "You look like a dead man walking." And well, he said, "Abdel, I had to come back to work. Because and a lot of the other firefighters, I just think we need to have a discussion, not just the municipality, but we have to make it, and this has brought it to light, in my view, that these guys are volunteers. They're putting gas in their car, in their vehicle, $60, $80. In my opinion, in our municipality, we're not getting enough money from Acadia First Nation for fire protection. That's one issue. And I know it's probably up to the commission.
Just to mention, we're sending one of our trucks to help Shelburne right now.
Yeah, so I think we need to have a bigger discussion. It's probably the province that needs to step up here and have some kind of, I don't know what they can do. You miss time at work. That shouldn't penalize you financially. They should be working with employers and say, you know what, this is we'll make their wages whole, the government, in some way, whether it's municipally, federal, provincially. Because if we didn't have, you know what, if every fire department in the province decided to say, you know what, we had enough, what would we do? 99% of them are volunteer. You have the core of HRN. And I just think this has really brought that to light. I just think things need to be, anyway, that's all, let somebody else speak.
Sharon?
I'll just comment, over the past number of years, whether it always was done to a bit, but I think the province relies on the volunteer local fire departments to be the first on site for forest fires, which really they're there to fight structure fires. So that means that these volunteers are going out, and I don't know about other areas, but certainly in our area, Lunenburg County, we have very few paid firefighters with the province. We have a fire crew in Lunenburg, for Lunenburg County, and
Oh, you mean from natural resources?
From natural resources.
They used to take
And it is a very
the lead
small
role.
crew. And they would take charge. So now, quite often, the volunteer firefighters and departments are their first response, and then they stay there and fight the fire. So, I mean, I think it's a lot of things that maybe the province will wake up and realize they need some more resources, maybe a few more planes, and maybe a few more staff. But they don't feel necessary. And I know they do pay the volunteer firefighters in the sense that money goes back to the departments, there's a certain rate, and they get reimbursed. But I certainly don't think that reimburses anybody's wages, but money goes back to them.
Fortunately, most employers in these situations will continue to pay them, but
But yes, it's just,
That was one of my points. They do. I know a lot of our employers in the Valley Chester pay their employees full salary. I know that Cardboard Mill does that, for example.
Yeah.
But when they do respond to fires, the fire departments, they may be there first, but if it's a forest fire, someone else takes command as soon as they get there. They don't leave the fire departments in control of the forest.
no, if they have a person to take command, but usually,
When there's a fire, if the scope is there, there's lots of people taking.
I remember the one in Chester Grant, hearing nothing from the fire department. Yeah, they were here and they were in charge, but they left, and now we're the ones who were staying here all night watching it, not them.
Well, the Harvard's department has been on a 24-hour call. They've been sending crews, rotating crews to 10 towns since the day this fire began. They had trucks there, they had people there. Our community has been supplying them with food,
Yeah.
drinks, whatever you want.
We're doing the bins in the office now, collecting
Yeah.
stuff for the
And I
displaced
know New
people.
Ross has actually sent a truck to Harvard's so they can rotate the truck and keep coverage
Yeah,
down there.
keep
So,
coverage, because, yeah.
I think in the fire, this scope and the situation Nova Scotia's in right now, this isn't normal.
No, it's not normal.
But you can see the camaraderie that people are showing. Everyone is assisting everyone and covering for everyone. So I think our system works. I actually do. And the wage part, I believe, and I'm not sure of this, Tara may know more about this, but I do believe that if people are fighting a fire for a week, they are compensated. It may not be that week or that month, but I believe they are compensated.
The departments are for their, if they use materials and all that.
Yeah.
What I think should.
Derek's next.
Oh, I'm sorry, Derek. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Bill. I think Deputy Warden, I agree, they're an extraordinary effort, extraordinary time. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't reach out to them as a council and thank them for the extraordinary
Oh,
efforts. And also, the employers who are still paying, most of the employers are letting the fire departments go and still pay them. I think we need to recognize that and the families of the firefighters. I mean, everybody's paying a price here.
Yeah, I think it's just a little early
Yeah.
in the game, you know. We need to see how it all transpires.
Well, I think it's never too early to thank them.
No, no.
And I think we should make an effort to do that, them and the employers.
Nella was next.
Yes, let Tina, you go ahead.
Thank you. So it's certainly my intention to visit my department tonight because I meet every Thursday night, and I think I said that to you, Tara, on Monday, for two reasons. One, just in terms of how the last few days, and we're in here, and I haven't even gotten any news today because we're not on news. So because it's very scary when you're away from the news for a little bit, I think. So I don't even know what's happening right now. But it's my intention to visit my department. To talk to them about the last few days, if they want to talk to me, because really, they're the ones doing the job, I'm just showing up, right? But also too, just to get some clarification around Beach Hill on Sunday night, and
To the best of my knowledge, they still had fire service people there even last night, just monitoring, just in case there was a hot spot.
so just all of that, right? All of that.
fire department.
But I wasn't going to even say that, but what I really want to pick up on is Councillor Church's reference and comments around the provincial position and what was in place before, years ago, and so on. The one and only meeting that I might have attended of Lunenburg East, and that was a year ago at least, the group was moving forward correspondence through the MLA up through around that, because it came out of the fire that took place in Chester Grant. And I don't know really where that all landed, but I think that we need to revisit, because again, where does this correspondence go? Asking for these important things, right? So I think that, I'm gonna ask my department tonight that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we should all ask our departments that, because they co-signed correspondence that went to through the MLA.
We issued all of them, yeah. Why are we
Around
here
the
doing
DNR
this?
piece, and why not? Why? So again, now we're here. You know, it was May earlier in the week. May of 2023, what's happening? So maybe we need to do that. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I just want to speak to Tina, because I did have a few calls, and I'm actually gonna contact Danielle, because I booked the evacuation in Beach Hill, because on the website for Red Cross, they listed the communities and to register for the $500 from the province, and that wasn't on that list, and I think it just got lost in the shuffle, because it was probably about 6 or 7 families, maybe a few more, but I had inquiries, which they left and had to stay at a hotel, and so I think they were just left out of it. So I'm going to speak with Danielle, and I don't know if we can do anything as a council to pursue that as well.
I can make that inquiry through our remo.
Okay, perfect. And just to Floyd's point about, he just reminded me about cooperation. When I was talking to our chief down there, and he told me he had to come back to work, what happened that day, they were still in Beach Hill, which they still are. So Cody Stevens, who was the chief in Chester, went and took the chief from Marshall Short's position in Beach Hill. And then Jared works in Chester, so he covered for Cody in Chester as a chief. So that was great cooperation. It worked for both of them. And yeah, but they're, and the community, everybody, like they had a barbecue set up there for them and everything, so it's been awful. But I think it needs a wider discussion with the province in some way, because these things are gonna happen more and more and more.
Fire departments, it'll be a good thing to bring up.
Good agenda.
How can we better prepare for this?
Yeah. I can add that Bruce Blackwood contacted me this morning, and he is coordinating with Remo and all of the Lunenburg County Fire Departments to make sure that we have we retain coverage, so that it's not haphazard departments responding on their own, but they're trying to coordinate that on a countywide level to make sure that we provide assistance to Shelburne, because that's where the request has come from right now, is from Shelburne. So to provide assistance at that site, and still make sure that we have adequate coverage here. So they are coordinating that right now.
Okay, so we're done with the public session of the council meeting. We do have an in-camera matter. My understanding is we're going up to your office, or your guys' office, to do that. So a motion to adjourn, and we will reconvene upstairs.
So moved.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. And thank you very much for